Hello, people. Hello, beautiful souls. Hello, everyone. I welcome you in my show, Chat with Monica. And today it's going to be the most interesting topic that I've done so far. Okay. So, this is going to be about our life, afterlife, what happened in our past life, and more. So, hold on, we will be back.
Everybody wants to be happy. Everyone wants to be loved. All of us wish to be healthy. Everyone wants to enjoy life.
Art changes the world. It inspires people to stand up and speak up and support.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once more. I would like to welcome my guest, Laura Culley, who has a lot of talent within her to help other people. So, Laura, before going to this interesting and quite deep topic, I would say, let's start by sharing your story so that people get a bit of feeling who you are and why you actually got to do what you're doing.
Okay, hi, it's lovely to be here. So I actually started off as a school teacher. So that's what I always wanted to do. So yeah, decided when I was at school that that's what I was going to be, a school teacher. And, you know, I was going to have this life, I was going to have children and be married, and it was all going to be perfect. It was all going to fit in very nicely. And then I became ill. So I had something called endometriosis, which means that I couldn't have children. So that was the first thing that just threw me. But, you know, this is my life path. This is what I'm meant to do. So that came as, that was just devastating, not being able to have children, and ended up having IVF and trying to get pregnant. Nothing worked. Eventually had to have hysterectomy. So, you know, just wasn't going to happen. All that led to a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, and I just became totally lost. Just didn't know what to do with myself. I ended up losing my career as a teacher because of all the pain. I ended up with fibromyalgia as well, I think, through all the stress of everything. So just had to completely rethink everything. So I went through a really, really dark stage, really just didn't know what to do, just couldn't see a future, couldn't see the point. My marriage ended up back living with my parents. It was that real, I don't know if you know tarot cards, but you know that real tower moment when everything just collapses. And it was like everything I built up, everything that I thought my life was going to be, just wasn't. So I had to have a complete rethink. So I had cognitive behavioral therapy to try and help me get through the pain and the anxiety. And that would work while I was having it, but didn't really work long term. So as soon as I was left to my own devices, I would start going downhill. And it was only when I actually discovered hypnosis online, really started looking into it, started listening to YouTube recordings, and thought, well, it seemed to make a difference. So it was really the hypnosis was the start of it all. And so I started looking into that, started studying it, reading everything I could, listening to these recordings, making my own recordings of the things that I thought I needed to hear. And it was as though the fog just started to lift. So for me, it was just, I realized that, you know, there are almost these two parts to your mind. So there is the part that you have control over. There's this part that, you know, so I could learn techniques, I could put the CBT stuff into practice, I could do the thought monitoring and all that, and that helped. But there was always something going on underneath, and, you know, things that these beliefs that I had. And I think from a very early age, thinking that this is my life, I'm going to be a teacher, I'm going to have children, and, you know, all these old beliefs and things that I held, that I needed to totally rethink that on a very deep level. So that was kind of how I got into the hypnosis, and the past life regression and the spiritual stuff really all came along with it, because I felt as though I was just totally lost in this forest, and, you know, really couldn't see the wood for the trees. And it just felt I had that kind of victim mentality, you know, that I think we all go through that sometimes. Just that, you know, why me? This isn't fair. Why is everybody else having children? Why has everybody else got a supportive marriage? How come they've all got nice houses? All that, you know, it's not fair. It's not fair. I worked hard and it's all been taken. Went through a lot of that, and finding this spirituality, really beginning to see things from almost from a distance, and seeing my life almost kind of laid out on a timeline, and looking at, well, why did I go through that? What have I learned from everything I've been through? And obviously getting really interested in hypnosis and learning about hypnotherapy then enabled me to help other people. So I realized that, do you know what, if I hadn't have been through all of that, I wouldn't be able to go on to help others. So that in itself helped me. And I started to think, well, perhaps there's a reason for all these things. When I was really quite ill, I used to watch a program, used to be on at lunchtime, and it was just called Have I Been Here Before? And it was hosted by Philip Schofield. And it was basically taking celebrities back to past lives. And, you know, it became the highlight of my day. So, you know, that kind of came along around about the same time as the hypnosis. I absolutely loved it. I found it fascinating. So that really got me into past lives and thinking about, well, you know, maybe this is just one small part of everything that we go through as a soul. This is, you know, we're on this spiritual journey. And, you know, maybe I chose some of these things. Maybe I needed to do this. And there is a part of me now looking back, and I've done some regressions myself, and I think that I was a mother many, many times. I think that, you know, I've done that. I've been a mum, and, you know, my mum will tell me that from the time I was a toddler, I would always just be obsessed with babies. You know, if there was a baby, I'd want to mother everything. So she said right from the time I was little, it was just so natural for me to want to mother younger children, if that makes sense. And I think that, to me, it feels like something I came into this life with. And I think that perhaps, you know, maybe I would have just kept repeating that pattern, that, you know, just being a mother, maybe, I don't know, but I feel that now maybe there's a reason that I needed to do something different this time, that, you know, I needed my focus to be elsewhere. So yeah, so that was a bit long, but that's how that's how I got into all this. That's how it started.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. So first I want to ask you what age you were when you lost everything.
I was in my early 30s, so yeah, probably about 33, 34. Yeah.
And now you are, if I may ask?
Now I'm 47.
47.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
And are you a mum?
No, didn't happen. No, well, I'm mum to a dog.
Absolutely, exactly. You can. Do you know what the truth is? You can be mum to many people around you. You know, it's not necessarily the baby that you can be mum to, and also the animals. So exactly. I want to go back in time, you know, when early 30s. It must have been really, really hard, sort of, at that time, at that age, to go through such a transformation in your life. Because obviously for us, the nature calls, you know, we feel like we are going to be a mother. And I feel it myself, yeah. And that when everything falls apart, it feels like the end of the world. How did you cope?
Well, I think for a time I didn't, you know, for a time I really did go through that really dark period. I just didn't know what to do, couldn't see a future. I think I probably was suicidal, you know, I really did wake up some mornings just thinking to myself, there's just no point. So for a time it was really hard, and I, you know, looking back on it now, and I think sometimes it's when you're coming out of that, I look back and I think it was all part of my journey. And again, I think I needed that. I needed to go through that, and now, you know, I help people who are there now. So to say, it's almost as sort of taking their hand and saying to them, look, you can do it, it can get better, you know, and knowing how they feel, so that you can kind of meet them where they are and bring them over to the other side. So, you know, it was really hard, but coming through it, as I say, I think it was finding hypnosis, working on my subconscious, working on all those old beliefs, You know, I'd always suffered with anxiety, so it wasn't a new thing. It was something that I've had since I was, well, as long as I can remember. You know, I can remember being quite an anxious child. So there were all these things going on that I'd never really worked on. And it really gave me that chance as well, I think, just stopping everything to work on all those things.
Yeah, and what was the breaking point? Because I know that many people can be going through the same thing, and the place is really, really dark. Yeah, I've been there myself, so I know. But it's really hard to see the light through the woods at the end of the tunnel, and actually make a decision to change it. So, what was the breaking point in your life on your journey?
Well, for me, I did get to a point where I really just thought, I've had enough. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm in pain, you know, and really did consider dying. You know, I got to that point where I just thought, I just don't want to do this anymore. And if I'm just going to be stuck in my parents' spare room, being in pain day after day, this is no life, you know. So I think I got to such a low point, and I don't know what it was. I mean, to me it felt like an angel or something, whether it was a spiritual guide, but I got this such a strong presence and a voice just saying, you can go. If you decide, if you know you can't handle this and you want to go, that's absolutely fine, but you will have to come back and repeat some of these lessons. And it was so clear to me, and it really did make me think. And I still to this day, obviously I don't know what it was, but it was a very strong presence and this very comforting voice. And they weren't judgmental in any way. It was just, they just wanted to pass on this, you know, yes, you have a choice. So you can either leave now, you can give up, you know, we can, and I kind of think of it as going home. You can go home, you can rest, but these are the lessons that you wanted to learn. You've been through all these things because you chose them, and you'll have to repeat them again. And it was the thought of having to repeat a lot of the things that I'd already been through. And it really made me just sit up and think, you know what, I have been through a lot and I'm still here. And okay, it's not easy, but it was just that I just thought, right, I'm going to keep going because I have been through a lot. I've come through it. Let's keep going and see what happens next. So it was just that was my breaking point, really. And it was just that, you know, am I going to live and give this a real go, or am I just going to give up and die? You know, it really did come down to that.
Yeah, you said I chose to change it, and you said that you heard a voice, which I had like goosebumps all over my body when you said it. So obviously it was an angel or a voice, whatever everyone wants to call it. But also you said two words that are very critical on this journey, and those are give up. Giving up is very easy, especially when we are very low. But you also explained what came to you afterwards, and that's that if you give up now, you'll have to go through it again. I think if people really get this message deep inside their system, no one wants to suffer anymore in the future life. No one wants to suffer in this life. And the truth is, we don't have to. And you explained it because you also mentioned, as you spoke now, that you got to where you got to based on your decisions and choices you made. So the journey has been exactly how it's meant to be for you, although it's so hard to believe it, so hard to accept it. It's exactly based on the steps and the choices that you made. So what was the biggest lesson that you learned from this?
I think it's really about being that victim. You know, are you going to be the victim and give up and just, you know, life is just throwing me around and I can't cope with this, it's not fair, that, you know, and I used to come back to that, look, it's not fair, you know, it's not, especially looking at other people having children, and just for a long time, just that sort of bitterness, and it's not fair, and that feeling of victim of circumstances. I think changing that, you know, and looking at, you know, life happens for you. Perhaps these things have happened for me so that I can learn. Maybe I needed to suffer through those things to come out the other side. because, you know, they do teach you. They teach you about suffering. And, you know, these are things you can't learn from a book. And I actually, you know, I love being a therapist now. And that's something that I never would have done. I think I would have carried on teaching. I would have carried on being married. You know, maybe I would have just been repeating things that I've done before. And I needed to go on a different path this time. I needed to do something different. And going through what I've been through, I can absolutely understand when someone sits in front of me and, you know, just says, I just feel like giving up, you know, and they give me that it's not fair. And I totally understand it. And it's, you know, holding back that judgment, because that is how it feels, and that's how you feel at the time. But then helping them to also start to see, you know, well, what if these things are, you know, you chose these things to help you learn something. And of course, you have to be very careful about that, because some people are going through awful things. And I think sometimes people take, you know, perhaps you chose it as, oh, it's my fault. You know, especially when you talk about things like abuse and, you know, horrible things that happen. You do have to be very careful, obviously, how you phrase it and how you talk to people. But if you could just imagine, well, what if I chose these difficulties for a reason? What am I learning from it? You know, and it's not judging, it's not saying in any way that you deserve it. I think the absolute opposite, actually. I think that, you know, when you go through these things, it's because you are quite a brave soul and you're perhaps quite advanced and you're ready for these difficulties and things that perhaps other people just would never be able to cope with. So I think, you know, the more difficulties we go through, I really think it's because we're ready for it, because we want that expansion. We want to reach the next level on our spiritual journey. So just understanding all that, I think, you know, has really helped me. And it's, as I say, it's not something that I could have read in a book. Well, I could have, but it's not the same, is it, as living through it and experiencing it and knowing that you can come out the other side, and that there is always hope, that, you know, there is always a next step. You never know what's around the corner.
I love that word, hope. I have to say, it's been following me throughout my whole life journey. Even when I was younger, you know, suffering so much because I was bullied at school, I actually had hope. I always wrote poems where was hope big times. And I really like how you said it and explained everything, because also what's clear from that story is that we are actually going down the hill for a certain time, not from day to day. So it's a matter of time when, as you use the word change, we make a decision to change something. Because if we realize, the sooner we realize that we are going down and it's not feeding us, feeding our soul, feeding our enjoyment on this life journey, then, you know, it's only up to us to really open our eyes, be clear, put the mirror in front of ourselves and ask, am I happy? Why am I actually doing this? Is it for me or is it for other people, other souls? Because if I am suffering, obviously it's not good for me.
Yeah.
So the change. So is that right, that the first change you made was to find a therapist or go through?
Yeah. As I say, I had cognitive behavioural therapy, and I had that several times. And but actually, what I do, and again, you know, at the time, I just thought, oh, it's not working. You know, this is not for me. But I found combining it with the hypnosis, which I just did, I say, online. I didn't go and see a hypnotherapist. I just found hypnotherapy online, just started learning about self-hypnosis, which is how I eventually found the teacher that I went to see, because he'd written a book about self-hypnosis. So he's the guy that actually trained with in the end. But yeah, I actually combine them now. So, you know, when I'm using therapy with people, I actually combine the cognitive behavioural therapy, so giving them those techniques, and as you say, watching your thoughts, and how your thoughts and the way you're thinking actually affects the way you feel and the way you behave, and how those three things almost on this cycle, aren't they? So, you know, you can start with any one of those things. So if you're behaving in a way that, you know, if you've got your shoulders down and you're looking really sad and fed up all the time, you're not going out, you're not doing the things that you enjoy doing, that can lead to you having very dark thoughts, dark feelings. You're just not feeling good. So, and again, with your thoughts, so, you know, with a lot of people, I do thought monitoring. So just getting them to really watch their thoughts and the language that they use when, you know, when you're talking about yourself, when you're talking to other people or about other people, that, you know, certain words that you use, the language that you're using is just so powerful. you know, the words that we use all the time, and how they can really either really drag you down or they can really lift you up. So, you know, if somebody asks you how you are and you're, oh, well, all right, but, you know, and you start to talk about your problems, just see how quickly you start to feel really down about things. Yet someone asks you and you, yeah, I'm great, and you actually try and think about the things that have gone well today. It just lifts you, doesn't it? And I think that practicing gratitude and all those things are so important.
Absolutely.
Keeping that sense of hope.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's exactly that, because as you were talking and you were saying that how we talk and how we feel, and based on that we behave, it's simple as that. I can't do it.
Yeah.
If I say to myself, I can't do it, I am actually owning the feeling, owning the thought, and it becomes a reality. If people say it again and again and again, it becomes completely part of them. And yes, the longer they will keep saying that they can't do it, they won't be able to do it.
Yeah.
And I hardly, you know, I really highly recommend to see someone if they're really in that place like that, because when their voice is louder than their instinct, than their inner self that talks to them all the time, it's so hard to actually go through it by themselves. I know many people, it was shocking, you know, but when you get the news that that friend died, and you clearly know where the problem was because it's been going on for such a long time, it's sad, but you know where the problem is. And it's really important to grab it right at the beginning, you know, when you start feeling that way and you realize you can't cope, because that's where hope starts disappearing. And it should never be the case that hope disappears from us.
No.
It's always.
Yeah, and I think it is something that you have to learn as well, you know, and I'm really grateful for the cognitive behavioral therapy, because I did learn about things that I just never even considered. And, you know, it's almost something that I wish they taught in schools, things like, you know, the cognitive distortions, just the things that we do, what we do to ourselves, the catastrophizing, you know, that causes all this anxiety, just imagining everything's going to be terrible, and that black and white thinking, it's all either going to be wonderful or it's all going to be terrible. Just these things that we do, that personalizing things, you know, thinking that everything is because you've done something or said something, or, you know, all those different things that we all do. You know, you're never really taught that it's just a thought, and actually you can change it, and looking at it, is this real, looking at it critically, and all those things. But I think you do need to learn it, and like you say, it's working with somebody, learning about those things, beginning to recognize them, because, you know, I'm not bright and breezy all the time, and as you say, you have to learn to recognize, because I know that, you know, I probably am still prone to depression. I was for years, suffered from anxiety and depression, but I've had to learn the triggers and the signs when I'm beginning to go down, and just think, no, I'm not going there, I need to change it. And, you know, that's what, you know, other people need to learn that as well. And it's, I say, it's a shame really that we don't teach this to children, isn't it? That
exactly, you just grabbed my words, you know, it's just so true. And that's what I was thinking even before I left the UK, you know, that two things I think are really missing in our system in schools, you know, and to really teach children about mental health, really mental health being, you know, in general, everything based on that, because it is psychological, you know, it's physical, it's emotional, it's all these things that are so missing. We are so sticking to the system, sticking to the old ways of learning. I mean, I have to say personally, I feel a little bit of an improvement in English system, you know, that they care about children's food, you know, and for example, I know only from my friends that, you know, kids cannot bring any other drink to school but water, you know, and a piece of fruit, or, you know, anything like that. And I think that's a massive step forward, you know, like it's 21st century, and what are we doing? Still like going in the old ways that no longer really work, because these days there are so many young people suffering from depression and anxiety and everything. You know, they're on antidepressants at age 17, you know. I mean, that's ridiculous. You know, I didn't know what it was. Obviously, it was there, but it wasn't as, you know, as mentioned as it is now, and as recognized, because it is a big issue. So I think everyone, the truth is, I think now we have a chance to really go back into our past life. The truth is, everyone carries a bag of problems from the
Yeah.
past lives. It's the generations, it's how our parents lived, how their parents lived, and all of it on us as a little babies is like fingerprints, you know, and we carry it into this life.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about this. You know, what is going on actually in past life or the past lives of those that we on based on their life we came on. That's
Yeah, it's difficult to know what we're picking up. You know, when I take people into past lives, we do it in hypnosis, and I try very much not to guide them or put ideas in their heads, but just very much, you know, if they have a particular problem, something that they're working on, that, you know, perhaps they've tried all the conventional treatments, nothing's working, and a lot of people will say to me, I feel like I was just born this way, you know, that nothing happened. Same if with things like phobias, you know, that when nothing happened, but, you know, my parents would tell me I've always been scared of dogs or whatever it is, or so, but we don't know. It's very difficult to know anyway, whether it is a past life memory, so something our soul has lived through, whether it is an ancestral memory, something that we're carrying, you know, within us, within our bodies, that we've physically brought in. But whatever it is, the past life regression is always really healing. So it's difficult to know where it's come from. I mean, I tend to believe that it is a soul journey, and that, you know, it's our spirit and it's things that we have lived through that we are somehow carrying as part of our soul, that we've come into this life. But, you know, even if it's a metaphor, you know, even if it is just something that's with somebody, that it's a metaphor for something that's going on in their life at the moment, whenever we do past life regression, it's always something healing, something very healing comes from it. Something comes back that could be something that they've really enjoyed in the past, and they'll come back with this sense of peace. And wow, you know, even something like gardening, you know, I've had people that have gone back, and I remember one man I worked with who, he was a shepherd, and he said just this sense of peace, just sitting first thing in the morning watching the sunrise, just sitting with the sheep, you know. And in this life he is a very powerful businessman and always very busy, and something he'd never ever done. He said, I've never felt such peace. He said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to make an effort to actually get up early, and I'm going to go out and just sit and watch the sunrise, because I feel that that's what I need to do, and that's what will bring the sense of peace. So it's amazing what comes back. You know, it doesn't have to be something traumatic, and that's something that quite often worries people. What if it's something awful that I've been through? You know, it doesn't have to be. Sometimes it's actually something lovely, that suddenly they get a sense of peace that they've never experienced before, and then they can bring that into this lifetime, and suddenly they realize what they've been missing. So yeah, it's always interesting. Something always comes out of it that's helpful.
I think it's also quite important to mention that in this life filled with loads of ads, loads of news, loads of rules, loads of systems, etc., etc. And most importantly, we cannot forget to mention social media and online world. It's really hard to actually fully pay attention to ourselves and what feeds our soul, what feeds our body and our mind to actually feel in peace completely. Because I think we can easily forget in things we need to achieve, we need to get done, you know, in that to-do list and endless to-do list. And we don't really recognize the fact that we are suffering. We don't really move any further because of not being able to do that. What is your take on it? How do you see this?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that was, you know, like with this man, this something that he'd just never done. And he knew there was something missing. He wasn't content. He was suffering terrible stress and anxiety. But that for him, just wow, why did I never think of doing that? And just the fact that he'd gone back into some past life, just had a totally different life, just as this shepherd. And then coming back with that feeling of peace, just, oh, that's what I need to do. And I think that's probably going to be more and more important to encourage that sort of thing, because I think, you know, children now, at least when I was younger, we used to go outside and play. We used to go down to the woods and play and things like that. That children nowadays, very much they're at home, they're on their computers, they're not going out and doing that. And, you know, part of that I think is because they just like being on their computers, and they have their whole social life, and everything revolves around screens, or it seems to be going that way. And also it's that fear, isn't it, of letting children out. I don't think they just go off and play like we used to. I think people now are, you know, much more frightened of just letting children go out and explore and, you know, stay out till it's dark and things. We just don't do it anymore. So I think, you know, children now, you know, as they're becoming teenagers, and as you say, with the anxiety, depression, yeah, it's something that we really need to encourage. And it's interesting when you do the past life regression and these things come out, just these simpler ways of life, and remembering how that felt, really living through that, really remembering, you know, whatever it was, whether farmers, I've had a lot of people, things like nuns and monks, and, you know, that sort of things that they've been in past lives. And again, it's that sense of peace, which I think is really missing at the moment, you know, with everything we do, as you say, just so busy, we don't take time to just stop and be in the moment. So I think these are things that we can learn through past life regression, through even talking about it, you know, remembering how much simpler life used to be, and just how much more peaceful people seem to feel. And just being in the moment, getting out in nature and just stopping and just appreciating everything that's happening around you right now, rather than always, you know, think about things that have happened in the past, things that you regret, you know, worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow or next year, trying to predict the future. You know, just stop, just come back and be in the moment.
Yeah, nice, really nicely said. And from the past life, how can people find peace and heal when they have a problem? Because people, you know, when people go that route, normally there is a deep inside kind of calling for something to find answers. So when they have a problem, when they go through this therapy, how they can really resolve it and overcome that?
Yeah, it depends what it is, really. You know, for, let's say, phobias are something that a lot of people come with various phobias. So going back, finding the root of that. So, you know, it could be, I had a lady who was really frightened of water, and we went back, and at the end of one of her lives, because usually we do a few lives, so I'll ask them to, what I usually do is take them into somewhere really relaxing, somewhere like a meadow, get them very, very relaxed, and then ask them to meet a spirit guide or somebody that's in spirit now that they might have known. And they meet them on a bridge, and then get them to go back and just ask the spirit guide to help them, just trust that they're going to take them somewhere that's going to help them resolve this problem. And I try not to say too much more, but just, you know, leave it at that and just see what comes up for them. So this one particular lady, she had a life as a white witch, you know, lived alone, and at the end of it was drowned. So, you know, she came back, just believe it, right, okay, I've solved it now. And it's just very strange how once you recognize where it's come from, so she could just leave it there. She understood it. She realized what had happened. We do a lot of forgiveness and a lot of healing. So, you know, can you forgive the people that caused this to happen? Can you forgive those people that drowned you? Yeah, she let all that go. And then just, okay, so that was your lifetime. What did you learn from it? So looking back on that life, you know, what did you learn, so that people can start to see there was a reason for it. There was something that they needed to learn. And then just letting it go, and just actually understanding where it came from, and then just letting it go and leaving it behind, floating away, leaving that body, leaving that lifetime, and understanding that they're now in a different life. They're on a different journey. They've moved on. That in itself can help. So, you know, things like phobias, it's really good for. Weight issues as well. You know, there are different things that people have gone back to. So for some people, it might be that they were starved, that, you know, something happened, and in one particular lifetime, they actually died of starvation. It could be, you know, whether they were in a prison camp or, you know, the Holocaust, and people have gone back to things like that and actually starved to death. And then in this life, they're trying to make up for it. So people with weight issues, you know, and it can be, you know, right from the time I was a little child, my parents never understood it, but I could just never get enough food. If there was food there, I have to eat it. You know, this fear that it's going to go away, and just never understanding where that's come from, because none of their family are the same. You know, their family aren't, it's not something that's been learned. So obviously that's the first thing we look for. But no, it's not been learned through parents or brothers and sisters. Food was never a problem in this lifetime. So going back and quite often finding that something's happened in a past life and they've made almost a vow to say, right, that's never going to happen again. I'm never going to starve again. I'm always going to make sure that I'm getting enough food. So, you know, it can cause weight issues in this lifetime, you know, or the other way, people get into patterns. So I've had other people that have gone back and they've come for weight loss and found that they've overeaten in previous lives. It's just a pattern that they've got into, that they comfort eat. You know, there's one man that I worked with who went back, and he was a woman in a previous life, and her husband died in the war, and she got very, very depressed. So she just turned to food and just kept eating, and eventually just ate herself to death. Basically, she just ate and ate, didn't do anything else. You know, and he came back with that, you know, I'm not going to do that again. I've done that. I'm repeating a pattern. I'm doing the same thing again. I'm using food to try and fill something, and it's not working. And, you know, that worked for him. He understood, right, okay, I've done that. That's what I did last time. I'm not going to repeat that again. And that's what he needed to get out of that pattern, to think about things. It's just fascinating. It can help so many different things.
Yeah, I'm listening to it, and so it makes sense so much, you know. But I think the key thing here is to hear it from someone else telling us, letting us know that this is what's happening. Because when we go right back to the beginning, even you are asking yourself, why is this happening to me? Why me? You know?
Yeah.
And I think everything leads us towards finding, researching, looking for the answers, which this can give us. And once we are getting these answers from someone else, someone who we don't know, someone who doesn't know us, it makes sense. We are more open to listen and take it, rather than if a member of the family may have mentioned something. I also think that sometimes we could put these like walls across, you know, and we just run through it without listening, watching, hearing, you know, feeling. We are just going that way with our own speed. And often many things and many answers can be coming to us from different roots, from different sources. Because if it's repeated again and again and again, and if we feel it's uncomfortable, we don't like it, that's exactly what we need to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's these things that we bury, you know, that we, like you say, we don't want to face our demons. We don't want to face those things because they make us sad or uncomfortable. So we just keep burying them and burying them. And that's, you know, with the comfort eating, things like that, drinking, smoking, all these things that we do to try and distract ourselves, you know, with it being a workaholic. You know, people just find different ways, don't they? But you go through life with this uneasy feeling that something's not quite right. You're never absolutely at peace or ever feeling happy. So yeah, it's as you say, it's finding that and being ready to face it and bring it out into the open, see it for what it is, and then let it go and be able to move on. Yeah.
To me, it really kind of feels like true that the only way to resolve a problem in our life is to face it.
Yeah.
Is to accept it and do something about it.
Yeah, it's true. But it's a scary thing to do. So, you know, you have to be ready. And I think it's that pain point, isn't it? You get to a point, I think like I did really, where, you know, it's just right, I have to do something. You can't keep running from it. And I think with a lot of the things I was going through, you know, that's the other thing, that with the anxiety and this underlying depression, you know, if I'd have just carried on teaching, I was busy all the time, you know, just socializing, teaching, I didn't stop. But this, obviously, the ill health made me stop. I had no choice. And then that was right, nothing else to do but face your demons and bring them up to the surface, see them in the light, see them for what they are, and let go of them. So, but we all get to that point in our own way, I think, don't we? Something happens and we have to face them.
Exactly, I like it. It's just so true that we often keep ourselves busy. We think everything is okay because it's somehow working, but inside we feel burnt and unhappy. But we carry on. We just keep going. and then you are forced to stop as you were. You know, you're forced to literally rethink how you've lived and look at the choices you made that led you to the point where you are right now, you know. And today, especially, is the life that we live right now. So anything that's holding us back from the past life, it's better to look at it and have it in front of us, open our eyes and accept it and move on. Try and work on it, as you said. I think it's a really good way of dealing with issues and problems in our life during the life, because let's face it, when we die, there is nothing, absolutely nothing that anyone can do. But when you live, you can do so much right now. So for everyone that's watching and really feels that way, leave us some comments. You know, we will be happy to answer it. And obviously, you can contact Laura. So anytime, you know, don't wait until it's too late, because many people didn't make it just because they left it far too long. You know.
Yeah. And sorry, I think that we're very much here. The way I see it, and this all again kind of came along with this spiritual experience that I had when I got that low, was that we are here to learn. That this is, I see this is almost like a school, that we're here because we've chosen these things, we want to learn from them, and it's just making the best of it and making the most of it, and accepting them, embracing these lessons and finding a way through it. Because as I said, I do keep coming back to that. You know, if we give up, we'll only have to come back and repeat these lessons, because it's things that we need to learn. And I think that, you know, once we do, I don't think we die. I don't like to use the word die, because I don't believe it. I think that we cross over. It feels to me like going back home.
Yeah.
You know, and you only have to look at people who've had near-death experiences and things like that, and the experiences they've had, and people who've been in hypnosis and been to that place between lives. So, you know, what happens when we're not here living our lives on earth? Where are we then? And this, it feels to me, and from the things I've read as well, that we go to this place, and it's like going home to rest. And then we look at what we learned during that lifetime, how that sort of fits into our whole soul journey, and then what we're going to do next. And, you know, I think we have a soul group that we connect with, that people in our lives, you know, whether they play a really big, important part, could be your neighbor that, you know, you barely speak to, but they might just say something or do something that has a profound effect or makes you think differently. So I think we all have soulmates. I don't believe there's just one soulmate, but I think we have a soul group, different people that come in and out of our lives at specific times to help us move on. We teach them, they teach us. And, you know, from the past life regressions that I've done, it's amazing how many people will recognize souls from this life, you know, and they'll say, well, it was my wife, but she was my brother in that life, or, you know, and it's just fascinating. So I think that we come back, we teach each other things. So, you know, it's also looking about the impact that you're having on other people. So, you know, what role are you playing? How are you helping other souls develop? I think that's really important too. And sometimes even just shifting that focus a little bit to, you know, not so much worrying about what's happening with you, but the impact on other people and how you can help other people. You know, and it's interesting, I think, that especially with social media at the moment, we can very much look at other people's lives and think, well, it's not fair, they've got this, they've got that, everything, it's all right for them, everything's going well, and you just don't know. And it's only when you really sit down and open up to somebody and talk to them, you find that, you know, the majority of us have been through some awful things. You know, we all have our stories, and people put on this persona, they have this ego that they'll put out to the world, when underneath you just don't know what's happening. And I suppose, especially being a therapist, you learn so much. The people that you just assumed were so confident and had it all together, and, you know, really had all their lives sorted, actually don't at all. Underneath, they're feeling just the same as I once did. So, you know, it's about looking at other people as well, and looking at how you can help them, and the impact that you're having on their journey. Yeah,
it's because we are actually here for each other. And I like how we talk about the soul. I still have goosebumps. Like, you know, that's always when I feel the energy. Yes, that's exactly how it is. And the truth is that we for those that don't really know how to feel it, I would say that you just feel connection with that other person in one or another way. You just feel that something, whether it's a male or female, there is something different. You are more willing to listen to them when they say something, not as you are willing to listen to your mom or brother or sister or whoever, you know. Relatives are always too close. They know us too well. We can't possibly open up to them. But if it's a stranger and you just get on with them, that one word, that profound information, as you said, can be very, very life-changing for a soul, a person on their life journey. It's just so beautiful. And when I started realizing it, when I started really listening carefully to what's coming to me, it all made sense. And, you know, my life became easier because it's all, as you said, lessons. We need to learn these lessons. If we don't learn them, they will come back. They will keep coming back for as long as we are not going to want to learn them, you know, and move and accept them and do something about them. Because any struggling in life is a lesson. And whether we decide to deal with it or not, it's a choice. But I like what you were talking about also when we cross over to the other side. Because, yeah, that's exactly when you do a recap of your life. And when I realized that, well, I want to do a recap that's worth actually looking at, that's worth sharing with others, then it's obviously my responsibility to do something about it. To be, for myself, happy and fulfilled on my life journey, because no one else is living my own life. So I might as well think about it that way, you know. And I think if people really open up their eyes to it, their mind as well, you know, then they will be guided onto the right path, you know. And clearly, it's not the one that leads us down.
No. And again, think about the impact that you've had on other people. You know, a lot of what I've read and people that have had these experiences, so that they felt how they'd made other people feel. So, you know, it's like they've had to live through the impact they've had on others, how you know, they've impacted how they've made other people feel, which is always something worth remembering. You know, how would you like to feel, and always thinking about, you know, the words that you use, exactly as you say, the way you're making other people feel. Are they feeling good about themselves, or are you saying something to hurt them and to try and make them feel bad about themselves? Because, you know, it could be that in your life review you'll have to feel that, you'll have to feel exactly how you made that other person feel. So
and I think if we are nasty to someone, it's going to come back to us for sure. You know, you might as well think about it. If you want someone to be nasty to you, then obviously welcome to it to other people, but it's going to come back. And I think that's quite important to realize as well. I like how you keep repeating, you know, how you make other people feel, because I always say that when you meet another person, another soul, another human, both of you hold 50-50% responsibility how you communicate, how you make each other feel. And that moment, that time, that situation, that event will never be repeated.
No.
I think it's really important to realize it, that no matter how much people hurt us, it can have very little to do with us, but our reaction, that's something we can control.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is. And again, it's that, you know, taking things personally, isn't it? And one thing with hypnosis is imagining you have a little shield around you, because it is, especially if you're sort of quite empathic, you know, and you take on other people's emotions. It's really, and I've always been told, oh, you're too sensitive. You know, my parents saying that you're just too sensitive, but it's really hard to do that. So again, it's something that you have to learn, I think, if you are quite sensitive, just to imagine that little shield up around yourself, and just, you know, almost imagine it bouncing back, that this is, you know, because quite often when people are cruel or they say something really hurtful, it's because they're hurting. And again, it's something that you have to learn, is it not to think, oh, it's because of me, but actually they're saying that because for some reason they're hurting, they're not happy. Because you tend to find that happy people don't go around hurting others. It's the ones that are somehow suffering that are trying to project that hurt and, you know, putting that onto other people. So almost letting that bounce back and then exploring it a little bit rather than losing your temper or getting hurt and upset. But again, I think it's something that we all have to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would like to point out one important thing, because also you were talking about those people that put that persona on, you know, and we watch them on social media and we think their life is beautiful. They've got so much money that there is nothing that can bother us. You know, the next thing you probably find out that they have cancer and you're like, what? They have everything. How can they possibly be ill? You know? And I think it's important to really mention here that we are all humans. We all need basic things to live. And one day, this journey, life journey, will come to an end. And then there will be that crossover into another life. You know,
yeah,
I think it's very, very crucial to really look into it, how we see it, how we pursue it, and what we are going to do right now. Is 5:50 in the UK, 6:50 here in Czech. And this is the moment we have that we can do something. You know, tomorrow is never guaranteed. The past cannot be changed, but we can work on either, you know. So the decisions we really make today is what's going to make a difference in the future, you know. So, Laura, I would like to ask you the very last question, and that's that one thing, one key information that you would like to leave our viewers with. What would it be?
Oh my goodness. I think probably it is that we're all here learning, and you know, to practice that self-compassion, that we are all just learning, we're all just doing the best we can. That's the whole reason we're here. I don't believe that we're here to be perfect, that we weren't born knowing everything. That would be pointless to me. So just, you know, whatever you're going through, although it's not easy when you're going through something really difficult, knowing that you will come out the other side, that you just don't know what's around the corner, and that you can quite often look back on it and understand it. At some point, you'll understand why it's happening. So I think just to trust in that, really, that everything happens for a reason, that we're here learning. And also when you're interacting with other people, they're just learning too. You know, we're all on our own paths. And so it's just important to have that bit of patience. And as I say, if you need to put your shield up, imagine that little shield around you, don't let it in. But just, you know, sort of understanding that, you know, we're all learning, we're all just doing the best we can. Yeah, I think that's probably my most important thing that I'd like to leave behind.
Yes, absolutely. We are all humans. That's the bottom of it, really. Perfect. Brilliant. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much for your time, for everything that you shared with us. It was absolutely brilliant.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's been lovely talking to you.
Brilliant. Thank you everyone for watching. Any comments, please do write them down. We can come back to you. Okay. And remember, you only have this life to live now. The next one will be based on what you learn. Take care. Have a great time, guys, and see you next week with my next guest. Bye bye.
Thank you.